Networking.
Connected.
Colorful.
Impressive.
Fruity.
Berlin.
Fancy.
International.
Intense.
Strong.
Innovativo.
Sustainable.
Hello, welcome to Berlin, welcome to Fruit Logistica, and welcome to this, our 2022 media preview. My name's Chris White, I'm from FruitNet, and I'm today going to be discussing what's happening at Fruit Logistica 2022 in a moment with Kai Mangelberger, who's the director of Fruit Logistica, and then with an expert panel where we talk through some of the trends we're seeing here in the fresh fruit and vegetable business over the last couple of years and going forward, and looking at our wonderful trend report. But we'll come to that in a moment. First, I'd like to turn to Kai. Kai, welcome. This is your first Fruit Logistica, and
Indeed.
We're delighted to be back here in Berlin at Fruit Logistica. You're the director of Fruit Logistica. Tell us a little bit about how you see what's happened over these last number of months, in fact, last couple of years. Do you think that the pandemic, has had an impact this year on the success of Fruit Logistica? What do you say?
Well, first of all, Fruit Logistica was the last trade fair, the last international trade fair taking place in Berlin before the pandemic.
In February 2020.
Indeed. So we were among the last ones which could take place. And now we are more than pleased that we are the first international trade fair in Germany taking place without restrictions the coming days. So we're very excited. But of course, over the last weeks and months, for some exhibitors, it was difficult due to the lack of planning security and also a very short preparation time to keep on their registration. So some withdrawal due to the pandemic situation in Germany. And others also had to cancel because of the new date in April. Yes. Which overlap with their season, the beginning of the season. But they will be there as trade visitors. So
that's good, and the people, we start tomorrow, and people are arriving today already, and already I bumped into people here in Berlin on the plane coming over yesterday from London. The flights are full, and people are all traveling from all over the world, as they always have done, to Berlin this year. Now, after it's 2 years that we've had of this dreadful pandemic, what are some of the lessons to be learned for you as an organizer of professional events? Are trade shows still relevant? Do they really make a difference? And does digital have a future, do you think?
So trade fairs are still relevant,
Good.
Definitely. I mean, of course, I would say that, but I think we all realize that you can have a meeting at home at your desk, having even a video conference. I think that's one of the improvements during the pandemic, but we all realize that it can't substitute or be an alternative to a face-to-face meeting. A face-to-face conversation is always different. We today met for the first time. We know each other since more than half a year, but we never met before, and of course it's different.
And be honest, I look taller than you imagined. Is that right?
Yeah, almost. But this pleasure of a face-to-face conversation,
it makes a
you
difference.
have it only in real life, you have it on site.
Yeah.
And I think even more in the fruit business, trust plays an important role. Yeah. And to establish trust, you need this face-to-face encounters.
Absolutely.
But still, of course, we have also added some virtual aspect to the show. So we would like to have a show on site. That's our focus. And we won't have a hybrid event. But of course, we will use the digital tools we have now. So for the first time, we have Fruit Logistica Online, which is a kind of online platform, an online catalog, as you know it, with exhibitor lists, products, product categories. But it has also some more interactive elements. You can register yourself as networker, even as a trade visitor. So you don't have to be an exhibitor. Everyone can register. And then you can network with each other, chat with each other to connect there, make appointments. And you will all see also our event streamed in this Fruit Logistica online.
And is that just for the days of the show, Kai, or is that for a longer period?
No, actually, it's the entire year round till the next Fruit Logistica.
So we can live Fruit Logistica for 365 days a year now. Great.
Even less, because in February next year will take place, so it's only 10 months.
Okay.
But indeed, and for the first time, we will have an app for Fruit Logistica, which is synchronized with this online tool. So you have everything in your pocket on your mobile phone. The exhibitor lists, the hall plans, everything.
Well, I've been coming to Fruit Logistica since the very first one, and I was delighted today that I could download my visitor ticket and save it to my iPhone, and then I'll just show it when I come in tomorrow. Now, let's come then to tomorrow, to the start of the trade show. What are the key figures that you're looking at Fruit Logistica this year?
Well, we have more than 2,000 exhibitors from 87 countries. And for the trade visitors, we will expect visitors from more than 115 countries. But Fruit Logistica will not only be very international. It also reflects the entire supply chain. So from the producers to the point of sale. I think that's what Fruit Logistica is about. That's what makes it very interesting. It's our core element.
Yes. And what about the visitor numbers? What are you expecting there?
We'll publish the visitor numbers at the end of the fair, as usual. We realize that even today we get, we are selling tickets. So what we learned, what is different, that 50% of our visitors bought a permanent ticket.
Yes.
So they will stay for at least 2 days, maybe even 3 days. So I think the quality of visitors will be even higher than in previous years, where we have only 30% with.
Well, I was astonished yesterday. I posted on LinkedIn a picture of my boarding pass traveling from London to Berlin, and I woke up this morning and found I'd had something like 17,000 views and so many likes and so many comments. It shows that lots of people are coming, and lots of people want to be there and will be there, will be here, I should say, in Berlin. Now let's take a closer look at you talked about these 2,000 exhibitors from many different countries around the world. Could you give us some specific details on some of the regions that are represented here at Berlin this year?
Well, the share between the different regions are almost the same than in the previous editions. Except Asia, for the obvious reasons. So the pandemic in Asia is at the moment quite strong. So we have less exhibitors from Asia. But for the first time, or at least again, there will be Myanmar and Sri Lanka with a big pavilion. They haven't been there in 2020, so we have even more countries from Asia, but with a smaller amount in total. But that's no problem, because in November we can all meet on site in Asia, in Bangkok.
At Asia Fruit Logistica.
Indeed. So this Fruit Logisticas will keep a focus more on the other regions of the world. So we have North America, Central America, South America than usual. We have even more exhibitors for Colombia, for example, than we had in 2020.
Wonderful.
And of course, Europe plays an important role with the big 5 nations we always had, which is Spain, Italy, the Netherlands, France, and of course Germany.
Yeah. Now, I did my podcast the other day, a couple of weeks ago, Fruitbox, and I spoke to the Ukrainian Berry Association, and I was astonished to hear that they're going to be here in Berlin as well, in Hall 8.3, I think it is.
Yes, it is. We were also surprised because they registered before the war, and first of all, we lost contact, but then we could get in contact with them again. And the president told us, no, they will come. There are refugees at the moment in Poland and Germany, but they will come with about 10 members to Fruit Logistica. And I think that's a kind of hope, and to see that they are, never give up. So neither on the battlefield nor in the trade. And I think it's important for the restart of Ukraine.
Yes.
So we should all be with them.
Well, I think it's a sign of their indomitable spirit, but also the fact that this is an important event that they want to be at, to meet people, because inevitably life has to continue and business has to continue, and long may it continue. We have actually a question on the screen that's come in from Mariana Duplessis, who I guess is contacting us from South Africa. She wants to know how many entries do we have from African countries, and in particular from South Africa. What can you comment to that?
I don't have figures right now here from the different countries. All I know is that especially for Africa, we have rising figures compared to 2020. For example, from Ghana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, we have even more space than in the previous year. So the interest from Africa was quite strong this year. Well, yeah.
That's good to hear. Now, tell us what else is new at Fruit Logistica in 2022.
What's new, for example, is that we have very high interest of politicians. So for the first time, we'll have 40 ministers. 40? Yeah, on a national level, coming to Fruit Logistica from Peru, Italy, from the southeast region of Europe, as well as a prime minister from Moldavia with 4 ministers coming. So the interest in the restart of the fair, but I think also in the fresh fruit business is very high this year.
Yes.
But from our point of view, we have added a new format, which is called Smart Agri, where we focus on all the digital solutions in agriculture. For example, flying robots for harvesting, or programs which helps you to estimate the fruit yield and so on. That will be in Hall 5.1.
It's a big area of development in the fruit and vegetable business, this whole tech space. Now, Fruit Logistica, you created the logistics hub a few years ago. Are you going to continue this trend, accentuate it even?
Well, actually, Fruit Logistica covered the entire range, as I said, from the entire value-added chain, from the producer to the point of sale. And of course, logistics is an important part of it. So we have this forum for 3 days. And I think there we can discuss all the latest and recent developments in the trade. I think it's quite interesting.
Kai, you've got a very busy 3 days ahead of you. I know that you and your team, because you've got a big team of people working on this event, have been extremely busy over the last 12, 24 months planning for Fruit Logistica 2022. And it's great that this can be your first show. And I know the whole world wishes you every success with it. Have a great Fruit Logistica.
Thank you, Chris.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kai. So we're now going to, before we turn to our discussion with our experts, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the trend report. The trend report has become very much part of Fruit Logistica each and every year. And the fact that we haven't been able to meet for the last couple of years hasn't stopped us from looking at trends in the business. But I'm delighted this year that we've got a trend report that's coming out with us all meeting in Berlin. And of course, the trend report is available for you to download if you just scan that QR code that we're also used to using these days, which is in the bottom left-hand side of your screen. You can then download the trend report. The trend report's been put together by FruitNet, by ourselves, and edited by our new Managing Director of FruitNet Europe, Mike Knowles. And as ever, is a very thorough job where Mike has talked to many leading figures in the fruit and vegetable business across the world to talk and to identify some of the 10 trends to follow in 2022. And there are many trends that we need to follow, but Mike's identified 10 key ones. So there's a lot to read there in the trend report. So do download it. And do look through it and use it in your editorial writings that you're going to be doing, as well as in the conversations that you've got with many people in the business. And the trend report, in fact, is what I'm going to be talking now. It's part of what I'm going to be talking now with our expert panel. So I'll just move over to the seats and introduce the gentleman there. So to the trend report, we've got our 3 esteemed expert speakers here. From Germany, or from the UK via Germany, I should say, is Ben Horsburgh, who's at Global Gap and has been for a number of years now. And Ben, you're here to talk to me about all those things relating to food safety, sustainability, and so on. Fabio Zanesco from VIP in the north of Italy, in Südtirol, in Alto Adige, who's very active in anything apples and everything apples, and trading across Europe and the rest of the world. And last but not least, my good friend Jan Doldersom from Rijkswaan. Jan is very heavily involved in that business, developing some fantastic products from seed in the vegetable business, but soon the fruit business, and we might come on to that in a moment, Jan. But I wanted, gentlemen, to talk a little bit, before we come on to this trend report, is this big issue about us being back here again being back in Berlin again, and how does that feel? And how have the last 2 years been for you? Jan, perhaps to you first. What's it like to be back in Berlin again?
Yeah, it's a good question, Chris. I think we are all a little bit nervous also. It's exciting to be back in Berlin and to have, after 2 years, a show, live people meeting. And I think we are all almost starting as new, as for us as in the breeding business as well. So we are very excited again to see a lot of customers coming to Berlin, and of course the 2 years has been difficult for all of the business, to reach out to our customers, to not be able to visit them. So we're very excited to have to meet them live again. Yeah.
Fabio, have you missed trade shows? Have you missed this being together with people?
Yeah, definitely. After 26 months, it's very good to be here back again. I think our business is very personal. It's much more personal if you talk also with friends or colleagues from other industries than in other businesses, because fresh fruits and vegetables are perishable. That means you have to trust your suppliers, you have to trust the people that are shipping the fruits to you. There can also be a problem that nobody could actually see because it's inside the fruit sometimes. So you really need a personal touch with the people you make business with. We all switched to digital, so we did all we could in a digital way, but I think we lost creativity. The digital board is very good for technical meetings, and I hope we will keep doing that digitally, because short meetings can be also much more sustainable if we consider the carbon footprint of travel. But nothing can actually substitute a good trade fair.
That's good to hear. Ben, you're very much you're in dialogue with, of course, producers all over the world, but also with retailers. Where do they fit within this trade show environment, do you think? Retailers, it's an important venue for them to come to, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. What I've noticed is that people are probably going to take decisions at the last moment. You get the sense that there's a lot of pressures on the business, particularly now. The disruption of the supply chains is not making anybody's lives easier. So I would say we detected that people would like to come. I think they want to make contact again. And at the same time, they may decide today or tomorrow if they're actually going to do that. And certainly my experience in the last 2 years is that we've managed to keep up good relationships with the retailers in a virtual way. I think we've all managed to pivot on that work. Now we've seen everybody's cats and children's and homes and stuff. But I think we do need to actually bring back that personal contact. And I think particularly, I don't know what it's like for you, but we have a lot of new younger people who don't have that background. Therefore, they need to really experience what the people are like, how the business works, because they can't imagine it. And they need that contact.
You mentioned a moment about supply chain disruption, and something we discussed again on my Fruitbox podcast just recently, Fabio. The issue about the Ukraine war, you talked very interestingly about some of the impacts that's had, some that you hadn't perhaps thought about that it would have, but tell us a bit about how this dreadful war in Ukraine has had an impact on the business of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Well, it has had a big impact, and I would say if we start from 2014, our world is becoming smaller and smaller. And we were probably not ready. We couldn't expect it because we were coming from decades of globalization. So we were looking at a very far market. We were looking to Asia, Africa, and the Americas. And then finally, we're now a little bit stuck in Europe, I would say, as an industry, because we lost Russia in 2014, and then all the trade flow changed from northern and southern hemisphere.
That was when there was the embargo.
The first embargo on August 7th, I think we were all in Istanbul for a Progress for conference. I still remember the moment in which it was done. Then progressively, obviously, the trade flows changed. Then this year, again, we lost Belarus. The European apple producer as a market, which was a very important one. North Africa is having difficulties. So actually, we are seeing that Europe is becoming a bit strict for the production that we have, and we really risk to have a structural oversupply. At that point, we are obviously looking at other markets, but the supply chain issues and the cost of logistics that have skyrocketed in the last couple of years are making really life difficult. So yeah, I think it's a particularly complex moment for our industry.
And you, Jan, of course, at Rexvan, you have a business on the ground in Ukraine. Tell us a bit about what's happened there.
Yeah, in both in Ukraine and in Russia, we have offices. Well, of course, we are shocked and also very sad about what's happening at the moment in the war. And we have two things we are mainly focusing on. First, of course, securing our people. So we have helped our people also offering a home stay with their families in neighboring countries. And the second one is, of course, securing the supply of seats because it's part of the humanitarian help, in fact, what we are going to currently supplying. So those two things we have been focusing on, let's say, the last 1.5 months. But of course, extremely difficult.
Yeah, and your colleagues are all safe and well, I hope.
Yeah, yes. Relatively, they are doing well.
In the circumstances, good. Now let's turn a little bit to these trends that Mike identifies in the trend report, and I guess all of us are thinking about where we've come from, where are we going to, and what are some of the big things that are happening in our business more generally. And there are, I don't know, hundreds of different issues, but we need to try and narrow them down. Mike has narrowed down 10 key trends. And I'd like to explore some of them. And it seems to me that one thing that's been top of mind for all of us is the issue about the sustainability of our businesses through this period of the pandemic. How do we continue with business? How does it work? And so on and so forth. But more generally, there's that whole sustainability piece, which has to do with environmental questions and so on and so forth. Ben, could you comment a bit to that?
Yeah. I would say what we're facing is a real squaring the circle challenge, because dealing with supply chain disruptions and production disruptions is almost forcing us also to recognize that you can't just say, well, sustainability goes out of the window and it doesn't matter anymore, because the impact of doing that is going to be in the medium term or the long term more detrimental. And yet at the same time, resources are limited, people are under pressure, so how do you balance the needs, the short-term needs of getting supply chains working, supplying markets, dealing with fertilizer and input costs and stuff like that, and still managing to do it in a way that doesn't undermine the future. And what I've been struck by, something that was definitely there in the beginning of the COVID crisis, that we thought at that point, I thought, okay, sustainability is going to go out of the window, and quite the reverse. It became even more important. The retailers doubled down on it almost. And I think that that's still there. The question is just going to be more challenging to deal with, is how do you start, for example, with your growers, raising demands, dealing with issues like biodiversity, and maintaining the economics of production. So I think it's one of the trends in the report is, how do we work better together is going to be essential to that, because it'll only be by working collaboratively, in my view, that we will be able to come up with the right solutions, that everybody can do their part. But we have to work as a team, otherwise it's just not going to work.
Fabio?
Well, I think one point we can highlight, I totally agree with what you said, but technology is going to have a big role. And the point is now it is a bit complicated to invest in technology because of the supply chain. So we're looking really at medium and long-term projects. We can work on resistance on the side of the trees. So actually they need less phytosanitary treatment. That's sustainability. That's also economical sustainability in the long term. We're looking at technology in storage, for example, to save energy. That's also economical sustainability. So I think technology can really help us a lot in making more with less and in making things better.
Jan?
Yeah, I think it's we have to avoid naming it a container event, of course, the sustainability. So we have to peel it down to what's the core at. And I think resistance breeding for Rexvan is extremely important to produce more robust varieties. So you have less waste in the field, but also in the supply chain. So shelf life is an extremely important aspect. And I agree, Fabio, with the technology part. So what you see in many countries now is that there is investment in, let's say, a more advanced way of production. So from open field to controlled environmental agriculture, CEA, is really an upcoming trend in many countries where where it was not maybe the case 2 years ago.
Ben, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I was just thinking there's another aspect that, in a way, is becoming more visible because of the Ukrainian situation, the importance of nutrition and healthy diets. And I think this is something that we also need to be, I think, aware of as a sector. There's also a political dimension to it, that we are part of giving people healthy diets. So the affordability of fresh produce is really critical, but also getting people to consume more is not just us wanting to sell more products. It's still part of ensuring that, as well as having your proteins and your carbohydrates, you need the vitamins and all the minerals that you get with fresh vegetables. So I still see there's a political dimension to this as well. And there's a strong link between sustainability and nutrition, also for the costs for society. It's not just the costs of cleaning up waterways and stuff like that. It's actually the health costs of people not taking care of themselves. So I think there's a really big story here that we should be, I would say, proud of and proactively pushing here, because it's not just about our own individual companies.
Yeah.
Being a little inspirational maybe, but...
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think we should be lucky to be in the fresh produce sector, because I think during the last 2 years of COVID it has been proven that people want to eat healthy and change their diets. And I think we have a fantastic industry to promote this.
But my big concern is probably a more basic issue with sustainability, and that's the sustainability of the producer. A few months ago I was in Belgium and I met a tomato grower, and he showed me the generator that is gas powered that would heat his greenhouses, and the price he mentioned per cubic meter of gas was there at the time, and now it's there. And I wonder whether his business is sustainable given the costs of production. And these costs of production are not just in things like energy, there are costs across the piece. Everything is going up in price these days. So how do we, as it were, how do we approach that element of sustainability there for the individual grower? And there are many growers who are affiliated to your cooperative. For example, pineapple growers there in the north of Italy. What do you say to them about this?
Well, it's surely very complicated. We're trying to work really from farm to fork, in this case, sometimes in a positive, sometimes in a negative way, because I think the sustainability of the production can only be guaranteed if, at least with the best possible technology, the factors of production are paid. So I see that our retailers, our partners, do not want to bring inflation to the point of sales. This connects also to making food and fruit and vegetables affordable. But we will have to bring some inflation to the point of sales, because it is simply impossible in the current global environment to keep producing without covering costs. So what we're doing is trying to do, as I said, less, to do more with less, but it's not so easy. At the moment, I think the conundrum is not solved at production level.
And especially now in high-tech greenhouses, as you mentioned, the gas prices, energy prices in general, so are really sky high. So you're right. We hear now figures that 3 to 4 out of 10 growers are now having financial difficulties because of this extreme high gas and energy prices. So and hopefully it is a temporary thing, but
Do you see there that the state will intervene? That
there are talks indeed with the policymakers to hopefully to compensate for that, because that's I mean they couldn't plan for this. This is such an extraordinary event.
But we have this rise in prices across the board of basic inputs for growers here in Europe, across the world, in fact, and yet our customers, the retailers, are still fixated, understandably so, because of the cost of living issues, on maintaining a price position in the market. And I keep on trying to understand how that is sustainable. What do you think, Ben?
I mean, I think everybody's facing a really challenging situation, and I would say that if I look at the skills that people have needed up to now to do sourcing in the retail or even in our trading businesses, they're being, faced with a situation where this skill set doesn't necessarily apply. So you have to really think, we're not talking about sourcing so much as supply chain management. You've got to have a bit of understanding of macroeconomics almost, because you've got to think about why are these happening and where's the big picture. So I agree. I don't think the conundrum has been solved, but I think we also have to have understanding for the fact that these retailers are suddenly having to do a totally different job from that for which they were employed to a certain degree, and the quality of the communication that we can have in discussions with them is critical. So I think it's more about putting heads together and not knocking heads together. We need to really get people working collaboratively, being honest about where they have real problems, and not trying to brush them under the carpet and pretending it's not my problem. I think that's a big challenge. But I mean, we know what it's like working with retailers. They are people. You can talk to them. You just have to be very, I would say, smart, and really think about how you address this. I don't know. I mean, you that's your daily business.
Yeah,
really,
well,
talking to these people.
I always try to highlight that the tree produce many different kind of fruits. So the same tree doesn't have 100 or 200 apples that are all the same. So there's always the possibility to change a little bit and adapt compared to the market, because we have a very different set of varieties, qualities, sizing, and sometimes just moving the sizing a little bit helps. Fighting the inflation and actually keeping the price affordable for the people. So if you really work with that technically, you can do something. On the other side, we will not be able at the actual level to do everything, but I have to say with most retailers, the conversation is open. Retailers have people, shops, they need energy.
Yep.
They do somehow, they face exactly the same problems that we have. So only together, really from the grower to the consumer, we can try to find the solution. And we have to communicate openly about that. I agree on that.
Yeah. But you talked about retailers and the changes that are happening there. And I think we've seen some massive changes happening during the course of the pandemic, not just in the way retailers operate, but the way in which we operate as consumers. I know you, Jan, you're big consumers online. You buy all of your produce these days online. Did you ever imagine that would happen?
No.
And why is it happening for you?
And why is it? I think it has to do with the convenience side of this, and I think this trend of convenience and in terms of online shopping, I think the UK is a specific example of this. I think almost 13 to 14% of the total groceries is now sold online. In the Netherlands, it's around 8 to 9%. In Germany, it's really much lower. But I mean the easiness and also the quality in fact that you get. So people were a little afraid that fresh produce, well, you have to see and touch and smell and feel and eat it. But I think figures shows that all the online retailers are having the same percentage of fresh produce sold via online.
But that change in your behaviour, literally in your behaviour and your family's behaviour, that surely has an impact on you professionally, because you then think, right, if I'm buying all of these products online and so many other people are buying all these products online, what does that mean for me as a seed company? What new products do I need to develop specifically for online?
Exactly. So it has to do, I think, with several parts. Indeed, shelf life is getting more important, but I think also you still need to tell and communicate about the good things. Nutrition is one aspect, but also to inspire. I think the online can have a fantastic opportunity to inspire consumers about recipes. So you have, I think there's much more opportunity there to explain to customers how to use it and which new products you can also add to your basket. Mm-hmm. So there are definitely opportunities for growth also for fruit and veg. Yeah.
Ben, the way in which you shop, have you found that that's changed during the pandemic, or are you still like me, a traditional shopper? You like going to the store?
I seem to be the only one going shopping now because my wife sends me out. So yeah, actually it hasn't. I mean, I spend a lot of my time living in Belgium. We have one of Belgium's leading retailers literally around the corner, and actually getting out of the house is for me part of it. What we've seen in Belgium also is a huge growth in organic, in a very interesting business model where they're sort of cutting out the middleman. So actually, I'm not personally a real online shopper.
But you would presumably expect a more interesting, involving shopping experience when you're out shopping for food, and that's not always delivered by many supermarket retailers across Europe.
No, although I think what we've seen a revival of some of the less known vegetables. I mean, people have started cooking with celeriac and Jerusalem artichokes, and parsnips are coming back. So there's a sort of kale, kale. Everybody has the kale smoothies and kale lasagnas and stuff like that. So I think there's been a big shifting away from going out eating, learning how to cook, buying your Jamie Oliver's and Anna Jones's books, and doing that. I think that's been HelloFresh. Sorry, I'm not doing any advertising here, but these kind of companies who actually make it easier for people to shop. So I think it's actually about reacquainting people and giving them the skills also to cook things, and then people then go into the stores and look for that extra special thing, because they say, well, if I'm not going to go and spend 200 euros for a meal, I can spend 50 euros on something special. So I think there's a lot more breadth to what's being offered, and I think that's where the stationery, the retail, the brick and mortar retailers still have a huge role to play, because they can do that spontaneous action that you can see, you can feel, you can taste.
Fabio, coming to you, have you found that the discussions you have with retailers, has it changed substantially over the last 2 years because of this emergence of new retail formats, of new ways of thinking about the way produce is brought to people? But it could be a man in a van who arrives and gives you the stuff now, not you going to get it?
I've identified different phases, because the first thing that happened with the pandemic was that people started stocking, and that was typically apples together with potatoes and a few other items. And then the plastic discussion changed totally. Plastic was bad before the pandemic, and then plastic came back as the only thing that is saving us, because we all have plastic in form of masks, gloves in our life now, and we create a lot of waste for that. We will have also the opportunity to talk about that in the future. So the plastic discussion changed. The formats have changed because people do not want to stay a lot in the shop. On the other side, we also see that we see premium references that are sold loose, for example, to save packaging. So I think the whole matrix has complicated itself in an incredible way. The new kind of packaging, to go back a bit to what I said before on sustainability, are nearly impossible to find because the materials are not there. So we have somehow to protect the products, we have to inform the consumer, we have to put some emotion in that if you want to communicate about something that is also healthy. And this matrix is extremely complicated. So what I can see now, the only thing I can really see is that the behavior, consumer behavior has become erratic. It's always more complicated to forecast what will happen in consumption. And it really changes because many new forms of consumption were born, but the mix is not clear yet, I think.
Yeah, and then maybe to add, I think Fabio is right about going back to basics, that we really see affordability, supply chain disruption, and to secure your supply was very important. So the question, of course, is what's happening with innovation? So how can you add new products to the store? And we have notified that this is more complicated the last 2 years, and especially if you don't meet new people. So retailers have been reluctant to add new items to their stores. So that is also the reason why we are happy to be in Berlin, to showcase our colorful products and to hopefully really create interest for new, because in the end, innovation is getting growth in your category.
Well, the word you use there, innovation, is very important. We're going to come to some questions in a moment, but I'd like to finish this part of our discussion really focusing on that innovation issue. Finish the point, though, then, Jan. You said innovation is becoming really crucial to our category.
Yeah, so and then it comes down again on this cooperation between as a breeder, as a Rex Farm, but also as the grower and the retailers. So these three parties should work together to bring new products to the market. And of course, you need to find balance in terms of the risks. But I think what we have been noticed before, let's say pre-corona, that it is possible to add new items, which in the end excites customers. And I think we are all there to excite consumers in the end.
So that's kind of quite a simple approach to innovation. It's not really, it's just changing the way one does things and coming up with new ways of doing things.
Yeah, but I think, of course, you want to diversify your offer. So you want to diversify in the lettuce range, or in the berries, or in the melons, and to grow in that. And so the new innovations. And of course, you can say it's a simple way, but it's not. We notice that it's not so easy to add new items because of the limited space retailers have, and add new tastes and also new usages. So that is the Rijksfarm. We have been breeding for that as well.
And you've got your retail center here in Berlin, of course, where
Yeah.
you bring retailers to look at how product works in store as well.
So we have a separate location where we receive guests also in the coming weeks to showcase our products.
Yeah, great. What does innovation mean for you, Fabio? Because I know that to develop a new variety takes 10, 15 years.
20.
20 years almost.
Pardon, 20 years.
Well,
if you consider the research. Yeah.
Where does the innovation piece come for you then? Is it in the way in which you grade, pack, supply, etc.? Brand?
Well, in apples, there's a lot of innovation now also in storage systems, warehouses, but robots, automation, because also with the labor crisis that has happened after the pandemic, one of the trends, I don't know if it's in the small book that you have.
I'm sure it is.
Will also push automation because some solutions were not.
In terms of reducing costs.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah.
In terms of varieties, the apple world have seen a lot of innovation in the last years. Maybe too much. I put a question mark. We will see if the consumer will be able to pick all the innovation and to accept all the innovation. And I think two are the key issues. One is taste. I mean, all the new developed, selected apples have a fantastic taste. Then you can taste it personally, you can like it or not, but if they're sweet, they're incredibly sweet, they're crunchy, they can be acidic or balanced, and they are extremely so. So I think this could help also consumption, because we could get to know some new consumers and younger consumers. On the other side, shelf life, because Jan quoted shelf life. Shelf life is the first thing you can do, improve for waste reduction. Because if we get a better shelf life, so for example, an apple that can stay 2 weeks in your house without spoil, naturally, because the cells and the development of the apples is better, then obviously you will not throw an apple away or a piece of that. And that small thing changes a lot if you consider the whole world. So I think we are really in an exciting time. The whole branding is another thing that would require a congress alone, probably.
We'll do that one for you.
Maybe one thing to add on the innovation and branding. So we will launch, because that I think is also innovation, how you market it. And we will launch in this week in a joint campaign we started with Minions. This summer with the snack cucumbers, with our group of producers in Spain, Macubis, and I think it's also a matter of how to bring it to the market. So that's also we called innovation.
And when we talk about innovation, of course, we always think of the Fruit Logistica Innovation Award. And I remember your smiling face when you won it a couple of times, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 times. With the first one with Salanova in 2006, and one with Knox with the delayed pinking. It also improved shelf life for the for lettuces.
And do you have anything up for an award this year?
This one not. Maybe we'll save it for next year.
Good. Well, let's turn to the questions, if I may. We've got a few coming in the 10 minutes, 11 minutes that's left to us. We've got a question here from Mario Echandi Bechtold. And perhaps you can take this first, Ben. How can traceability from farm to fork be improved by adopting technological-driven solutions like blockchain?
Yeah, I wouldn't go so much into blockchain itself, but I think the question is touching on also a very important aspect of innovation for certification, for the certification sector, because it's all about data. So the question will be, how can you use technologies like blockchain to capture data, make sure that it's reliable, make sure that people aren't sharing data multiple times, but actually sharing it once and giving people access to it. So making the whole data sharing process, which is not only underpinning certification, but it's also underpinning everything to do with sustainability, where you have to document, is this the farm you're talking about when you're talking about social risks or biodiversity? But the same, are we buying the apples from this grower or that grower? So using those technologies is going to be tremendously important to come up with smart solutions where people can actually, in a way, I think you said it earlier, do more with less. So how can you get more value out of processes like certification without sending the auditors onto the fields for an extra 2 weeks? Can they do more than that? Technology is going to be the answer for that.
Fabio, you're a marketing man. Data for you is highly important, isn't it, to understand the market?
Well, I have to say there's a huge amount of data that we have to process now, and sometimes I have to say we're not ready. But I think the big jump forward could be to share those data with retailers. So at the moment, we sometimes find the retailers are very jealous of their data towards us as suppliers. And I think looking at those data together could give myself as a supplier perspective, but also the retailer could really profit in saying, hey, that's what's happening in sales. What do you say? Because sometimes we see, for example, cost savings that the retailers are not seeing, or we could see a solution or some kind of promotion that works in a different way. So I understand that sales data are very, very private somehow, but I think we should really work more on together understanding what the consumers are doing.
Which is back to this collaborative discussion.
And one last point on the shops, if I may, because it's something I really think about a lot. During the pandemic, we started buying online, and that is one thing in which the experience online is very good, which is paying. Getting out, checking out with your sales, which is extremely uncomfortable in most parts of the shops. And that's probably the worst part of many people experience, because they go into a shop that looks like a market. It's very nice, it's very colorful, they buy fresh food, and then they wait 20 minutes to get out of the shop, and they start playing with their phone, and the whole experience is spoiled somehow. So I hope that also technology and automation will help us in that, and without making job losses, because we will always need people in the shops, but helping a little bit the consumer to remember the shopping experience in a positive way and not destroying it in the last 5 minutes.
Of course, the checkout is a very important part of life, daily life here in Germany, isn't it? The speed in which the stuff comes off the belt.
Yeah, although I see, if you look at the trade press, a lot of the retailers are investing in self-checking. So it's beginning to change.
It's
I think
a big development.
Yeah.
That issue of blockchain, though, Jan, is that something you're talking a lot about at Volkswagen?
Yeah, of course. The impact in terms of data in general. So not only at grower level, collecting data, but also providing growing or cultivation advice in terms based on data. So definitely, so if you can have the ideal chain would be completely transparent in terms of also the way how you produce and what types of seeds and fertilizers and chemicals you are using. I think that in the end will be standard, and the way how you communicate these data, blockchain can be a solution for this.
Let's pick on that. I think we have to be careful, because it's easy to talk about blockchain, but it's a challenging task to actually implement the systems to make these kind of solutions work. And what I notice is that we're dealing in a very fragmented sector, very low margin sector. We don't always have the IT resources. We don't often have the IT systems in place to talk about that. So again, that would be an argument for collaboration. So I just think we should be careful about talking about blockchain and all these technologies as though it's a no-brainer and an easy task. My experience is you have to really sit down and think these things through with your partners and say, okay, if I want your data and you want my data, how do we do this in a way that is not going to end up with another set of Excel files? And who's going to spend the money on it? Because it's usually going to be an upfront investment, plus looking for the people who you need to actually do it, because IT skills are also a rare good. So, let's talk about it, but let's keep our feet on the ground. That would be my recommendation.
Good. Okay, well, in the last 5 minutes today, I thought I'd like to talk to you a bit more about brass tacks and what you're doing here at Fruit Logistica, because, of course, all three of you represent different organisations, your own organisations, but you're all exhibitors here. Fabio, what have you got at the stand of that we can find at VIP this year at Fruit Logistica?
We have a common stand with our friend of VOG in the South Tyrol stand, so in Halle 2.2, the C14. And what's new this year is an innovation corner. You asked me about innovation. You didn't know about the innovation corner.
I do now.
So you do now. And innovation has been so fast in the last years that we had no occasion to make people taste really physically our products. Selling fruits by post to people that are in big offices and nobody knows where the packet has gone, it's complicated. So we decided to focus on taste and to say, come to our stand, taste 3 new fantastic apples. These are Cosmic Crisp from America, Giga, and Red Pop. These are three new different apples, I would say. I particularly like Cosmic Crisp, and I think it's a game changer. It's an apple that comes from the United States, but is grown in South Tyrol, and it will give the possibility to really have a long season for apples, to have crispy and fantastic juicy apple with a special texture until the end of the season. So yeah, innovation and taste. These are the focus.
Well, I'm very lucky because I've tasted all 3 apples, and I have to say they are
You received
delicious.
a special
They were
packet.
very, very good, and I look forward to coming back and tasting all of them, in fact, at the Innovation Corner. What about you, Jan? What are you doing at Rijksvan?
Yeah, Rijksvan, we are in hall 1.2 in the Dutch hall, and D4. And our central theme is a color for life, to stimulate adding color to your plate, because we believe that it pulls more people to the shelf also. So we are displaying the Salad Trio, the 3 different seeds in a lettuce variety. Salanova is one of the aspects, and Sweet Palermo. We have added a new color, chocolate color, and of course a medley of tomatoes. And what my favorite is the purple cauliflower, which we'll also display in our stand.
A purple cauliflower.
A purple cauliflower.
But that's not a Romanesco. It's
No. It's we indeed make a nice combination of mix of purple cauliflower, green Romanesco, and white cauliflower, which you can also use as a shaker when you cut the rosettes, as a convenient product.
And does it taste different?
It's very nice, very mild, I would say, tender. Yeah, very nice.
So the purple cauliflower in hall...
In hall 1.2.
1.2.
Yes.
Okay, at Rijksvan. And finally, to Ben at Global Gap, you're back at the show, which is great.
Yep.
And what are you going to be talking about on your stand?
I would say we've got quite a lot of
And where
innovation.
are you, in fact?
Oh, I think we're hall 4.2.
Good. Okay, I'm sorry to put
Yes,
it on you, but
yeah,
I'm sure you can check in the
Yeah.
online wonderful app catalogue and find
Exactly.
it there. So.
That was actually an indication so that people can double check what I'm saying. There's quite a lot of innovation that's been happening in the last 2 years with Global Gap. So what we will be presenting is what we're calling our smart pharma assurance strategy,
Yes.
which is coming in, bringing a lot of the digitalization, the new ways of doing audits, with the new version of our flagship IFA standard. That's what most people refer to when they talk about Global Gap certification. So we'll be presenting the whole approach that will be really looking at making that process much more effective and efficient. We're also launching the biodiversity add-on, which is the first biodiversity standard for conventional agriculture, which was a project that was initiated by the retailer Lidl together with us. We'll be updating on our TR4 work, which obviously for the banana sector is really important, and the supply chain law. And we'll also be showing for the first time the Global Gap B2C label, the GGN label, which was launched last year or rebranded last year. And this is the first opportunity for also a lot of our new colleagues to meet the industry and to present this concept to them. And for us, it's a great innovation because we'll actually finally meet people who we've never met before in our own company.
It's very exciting, isn't it? Yeah. Well, and I know on your stand, as well as there with our friends in Northern Italy, as well as with the great people at Rijksvan, there's always going to be a great deal of welcome and hospitality and a nice coffee to drink and perhaps something more. And that's all part of being here at a trade show again and being among people again, which is very, very nice. And the fact that I don't have to ask you to unmute yourself when you're...
Everyone would be, I think there'll be a question of the mask etiquette. It's like, do I, don't I?
Well.
So a lot of people looking, checking what's okay for you, what's okay for me.
Good. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming with me today to this media preview. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of this media preview. Please continue posting your questions if you want to online, and somebody will come back to answer them. We've got a very busy few days here at Fruit Logistica, as always. There's, as ever, the media centre here up in hall 6.3 that you can come and use throughout the days of the show. Make sure you get out and see as many people as you can and shake hands safely with them all and wear a mask or don't wear a mask as you prefer and as they prefer. But most importantly is to enjoy, and it feels strange to say this again, but enjoy being back at Fruit Logistica from opening tomorrow right through till Thursday. So we wish you an extremely successful few days here in beautiful Berlin. It's great to be back. Thank you for joining us this morning and look forward to seeing you at Fruit Logistica.